Assistive Technology Hot Corner proudly presents our November series of our Assistive Technology Support Group meeting, Home for the Holidays. We hope you enjoy this episode. Subscribe and share. Thank you for listening.
I want to say good evening to everyone here that's listening live. We are presenting our monthly AT support group meeting. I'm Mike Mote. Israel Zarita is alongside. Israel, good evening.
Good evening, Mike.
And we're glad that all of you folks have joined us, whether you're here live or if you're listening to the recording. We thank you for being a part of what we're doing. Of course, this is our monthly AT support group meeting. And if you're new to this, I want to let you know that we are here on the third Thursday of each month, and we have pretty much an open forum, although we do take time to discuss things and just kind of inform people about various assistive technology events, maybe some new software, new releases of current software, and just general news. But at the same time, we love to have you participate with questions and comments about the subject matter that we are discussing. Tonight, because we are sitting in November, the week before Thanksgiving, I want to take a moment to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Hope everybody enjoys time with your family and you're able to do that. But we're going to talk about some timely things tonight with respect to Thanksgiving. A lot of us will be traveling on Thanksgiving to our families, be it in the air, on the ground, a lot of different ways we will do it. So I thought I would give some traveling tips and using technology to your advantage. It's really important to know how to do that. And that's the first thing we're going to talk about. And then I've asked Kim Flanagan, who is the manages and runs our schoolhouse at IFB Solutions. We call it Tracy's Little Red Schoolhouse. Some of us call her Tracy, but her name is really Kim. And she is been gracious enough to join us tonight, and she's going to talk about prepping food and using technology to help do that, because a lot of folks cook over the holidays. So hopefully these are two subjects that will be interesting to you, and then we're going to open it up and ask questions to the folks who present tonight. Myself, Israel's going to add things as well, and also Kim. And we'll talk about anything else you would like to discuss, because this is, after all, a meeting that's geared towards you folks, the participants. So I'm not going to take long to talk about what I have to talk about, because I've just jotted down some tips about safe travel. One of the things that I will discuss about traveling and say is that it can be very tough to do if you're not prepared to travel. You can't just show up at an airport and expect everything to go well. It might, and you may be okay, but it may not. And a lot of the stuff that could go wrong, you can prevent by just paying attention to the little things. So really, these are some reminders and some things that you might consider when taking a trip. I know a few of you on this call are indeed going to be flying, because I know you. But if you've never flown before, or it's been a while, let me first tell you what to expect. First of all, you're going to have to wear your mask from the time you walk in to an airport until the time you leave. That is a requirement by the FAA and by the National Transportation Safety Administration. You will be wearing your masks. And if you do not, you will not get on a plane. It's just that simple. You do not have to be vaccinated, but you do have to wear a mask. Now, if you're traveling internationally, that's a different story. You'll have to talk to the airlines and determine whether or not you are required to be vaccinated before you go to a specific country. There are different rules for different airlines and different destinations. But I'm just going to go through a few things to think about as you get ready to travel. Some of these will sound very elementary, but I will tell you they're very important. The first thing you need to do is to not wait until the morning of or the afternoon of your trip to pack. You'll forget stuff. That's just been my experience. Number two, make sure you know where your ID is in your billfold or your purse. That way you can get to it. Make sure you know where your check card is, because you're going to be paying for a baggage fee unless you do it ahead of time. If you can do it ahead of time, do so. I would also know your airline. Know the airline that you're flying, if you're flying. American, Delta, United. And do your part and download their app to your smartphone. Whether it's accessible or not, it is a good idea to have it because at least you can get some updates on your flight from the app itself. Most of the airlines apps are fairly accessible, not 100% totally user-friendly, but they are fairly accessible. And you can get a lot of information about your flight. And it's really important if you're in a very busy airport, because there are oftentimes gate changes and you will get notified about those gate changes. Know the airline you're flying, make sure you have their app, make sure you have a user account, and make sure you've got your trip set up where you can get information about your trip on your smartphone. You will get a lot of it. Normally, you can check in at least 24 hours before you're supposed to leave. It's a good idea to go ahead and go through that process on your app or through the website. And if they offer you the opportunity to pay for your bag ahead of time, then go ahead and do so. While we're on the subject of a bag, know what color the bag is. Know something about it that will identify it when you are in the airport. This is really important when you go to claim your bag at baggage claim, because most of the time we have to check bags. If we're going to be traveling for any length of time, a lot of us have to check our bags, leave it with somebody. So we need to know what it is. And we need to be able to tell the person who is helping us find our bag something about it. Not a bad idea to get a tag and put on your bag that has your name on it. If you can do that prior to traveling, do so. Little things like this will help you be a better traveler. Again, as I said earlier, some of this stuff sounds elementary, but it's really not. But if you haven't done it in a while, it's a good idea to think about that. A few other things to tell you. If possible, know the gate for your flight, because a lot of times if you're walking or traveling with a SkyCap some way, they don't know for sure. Now, it will be on your boarding pass. I recommend that you get a boarding pass printed because they're going to ask for it a million times. You'll have to show it when you're doing the security check, and be prepared for the security check. I want to talk to you about that real quick. If you carry anything like a computer, it's going to come out of the bag. If you carry anything that goes with you, like a CPAP machine or some sort of device that you need for your health, it will be examined. So it will come out of your bag, your carry-on bag. So be prepared for that. Be prepared to know that that's going to happen. Normally, they ask you to take off your shoes and your belt and empty your pockets. So a good rule of thumb is when you get to the airport, make sure you have as little in your pockets as possible. If you can take just your ID and your phone and everything like that, just put your keys in your bag. You don't need your keys in the airport. Just do things like that. Loose change, put that in your bag. You're not going to need it. Little things like that will help you. Okay. Be at least 2 hours early to the airport to fly these days. There's a lot of reasons for that. One of the main reasons is a lot of folks are short of workers right now. Airports are no exception, and the SkyCaps are limited. So it takes a little longer. So 2 hours at least is what you should give yourself. I would rather wait at a gate for a little while than be huffing and puffing trying to get to the gate and be nervous and stressed out. I would also recommend that you make the airline aware when you're making your reservations that you will need assistance, need a SkyCap to help you. This way they know, they're prepared, and they're not scrambling trying to find somebody. That doesn't always mean they're going to have somebody standing by, but at least they know. If you don't let them know when you're making your reservation, perhaps you did it on Travelocity or one of the travel sites, do it when you first get there. Say, can I have some assistance when I get to my destination? They will let them know. The person at the desk will alert someone and they will help you. Another thing to consider, for those of us who know how to walk and are able to walk, that's great. But a lot of times they will show up with a wheelchair and ask you to get in it. Please don't be offended by this. It's not a matter of you not being able to walk. A lot of times it's just easier and quicker to get you through an airport being wheeled around. And believe me, when you get to a very busy one like the Atlanta airport, where I fly in and out of quite frequently, it's almost a godsend because you're not having to people walk in front of you. It's just an easier thing. And if the SkyCaps want you to do that, comply with it. It's not a big deal. It really isn't. Most of the time, when you hear that they are boarding, you can stand up and walk towards the podium, and they'll let you get on the plane first. You'll get to your seat, you'll find your seat, and then you can sit, hang out, let everybody else get on board and take off. I mean, you're all going to the same place, but that is something that they do offer. I would also recommend that you wait until everyone else deplanes before you try to get off of the airplane. Several reasons for this. One of the biggest reasons is most of the time the SkyCap hasn't gotten to the airport or to the plane yet that's going to help you. And if they have, chances are they need to help other folks get their bags that they've brought on the plane. They're helping do other things. And once they're done, they can help you. So just wait. It'll take a few extra minutes, but the crowd will be thinned out and it'll be easier for you to get around. Okay. Just going through some of this. The main thing I would also say is be patient. Sometimes they will sit you down in a place and say, we will be with you. They realize you've got to get to your plane. They realize that this is, important to you. But at the same time, if too much time passes, get up and, walk towards the podium and let them know that you need assistance if you feel like it's been too long. One of the things I will say as a traveler, I've said this many times, being attentive, paying attention to what's going on around you is critically important. Especially now, because it is a busy time for travel. This is one of the busiest times of the year, holiday season. If you're going places either on Thanksgiving or during the Christmas holidays, you want to make sure you're paying attention to everything. It's really important that you have your app on, that you're paying attention to that, because gate changes do happen, delays happen, and you'll be among the first to know. They push this stuff out. That's one of the great advantages of having the airline app. Don't rely on your travel app like Travelocity or Expedia or any of those things. Rely on the airline's native app, such as Delta. Delta has one called Fly Delta. American has one. It's just called American. United, same story. So, and wouldn't be a bad idea for you to kind of get familiar with how the respective apps work, depending on which airlines you're flying. And that way you'll know what to expect when you start using it. Just the layout of the screen is really helpful. But the main thing is to pay attention. The main thing is to be aware of your surroundings, know what's going on. If there is a gate change, don't panic. Just stand up, You may want to speak to someone beside you and say, hey, there's been a gate change. May I follow you to our new gate? And normally it's not in a different terminal. It's just 2 or 3 gates one way or the other. And sometimes it's 5 or 6 gates. I've seen that. Most of the time, they don't change the whole thing around. So just be aware of that. Other things to consider. Traveling is, if you're going to carry electronics, I would keep them with me. I would not let them have it in the baggage that you're going to stow on the plane, your suitcase. If you do have to put electronics in your suitcase, put plenty of clothes around them and protect them, because Lord only knows what they're doing with those suitcases. It's really important that you just think about how you're going to pack your stuff. Protect it as best you can. If possible, though, keep it with you. Computers, CPAP devices, don't let them out of you need those. Also, if possible, put an extra change of clothing in your carry-on bag, just in case your bag doesn't make the trip. It's happened to me. It's rare, but it does happen. They will get you the bag. It's their responsibility to do so. But just be aware that that could happen. And if you don't have a change of clothing, that's the time that they're going to forget your bag. So just be aware of that. It usually costs you $30 to check at least one bag. Some places are cheaper, and some places offer credit card applications. If you're successful, they'll give you your first bag check for free, just so you'll sign up for their credit card deal. And that's up to you if you want to do it. If you don't, just pay the $30 and go on about your day. When you get your tickets back, once they've scanned them, once they've printed you a boarding pass, I normally ask the person at the desk to staple mine with the ticket that I have, the boarding pass, and the baggage receipt, because the baggage receipt is very useful if you need to go find your bag. And that can happen because sometimes it takes you a while to get from the plane to the baggage claim area and get your bag. So be aware of that, and have that on hand. Make sure you keep up with that so that they can take that baggage receipt and go find your bag. Your phone is a really important piece of property to keep with you and keep charged fully. Make sure you have it at as close to 100% as you can when you leave to go get on the plane, because it's going to help you through the airport. You can track your flights. You can do a lot of different things like that will help you once you're there. Those are some of the tips that I would bring to you. I think if you do all these things, you're going to have a successful flight. Prior planning prevents disaster. So if you're flying somewhere, make some preparations the day before. If you can check in online, do so. If you can, you'll have your boarding passes on your phone. It's not a bad idea to get them printed as well. They will do that. Just have, and just be aware of that. Pay attention to what's going on around you in the airport. Do not leave your bag anywhere. Of course, they scream that from the loudspeakers every 10 minutes, so you won't ever forget that. But just take advantage of what your phone will tell you in the airport. A lot of folks you can use IRA at a lot of airports. So for those of you who are IRA subscribers, IRA folks can help you get through an airport. If you don't want to use a SkyCap, if you just want to use your phone, you can do that. I do not use IRA yet, but some people do. And that's also a very big help, because they can pull up a map of the airport and they can help you do things like find some food if you're hungry before your flight, and point you into the direction of things like that. So those are some tips that I wanted to share. And Israel, if you have anything to add that I grossly either left out or misinformed people, you can certainly chime in, and then we will open it up for any questions anybody has.
Yeah, Mike, thank you very much. Everybody, welcome. Once again, I do see some new faces, and we're glad to have you on this meeting. We hold it on the third Thursday of every month. Just wanted to jump in with that. And Mike, I just wanted to quickly summarize three things that jumped out at me. From a technology standpoint, there's a lot of really good tracking devices to put on your suitcases that will emit sounds, such as the Tile products. Those are very good. They emit a pretty good sound, and they also have an app on your phone. Apple has those new AirTags. Those new AirTags can be attached to an Apple case that you can then attach to your suitcase or to your carry-on, whatever you want. And those two have an app that you can use, Find My, on iPhone and iOS, with those tracking devices, just to help you find your items. Second thing that jumped out at me, for those of you that are guide dog users, the Department of Transportation requires you to have documentation to prove that your service animal is a legit service animal and not an ESA. This is both a good thing and a bad thing. Unfortunately, for those of us who use legitimate service animals, the movement of people bringing their animals onto the airplane, onto airlines, has really impacted us, because we used to just be able to breeze right on through, and now we have to prove with documentation. So make sure you have your documentation with you, and they'll scan that. The ticket agents will scan that, and they'll add that to your reservation, and you won't get questioned. And that's very important, especially if you have transfers to multiple, if your flight is divided in multiple segments. So I definitely recommend that. Again, with guide dogs, there are a lot of airports that have relief areas. Make sure to identify where the relief areas are, because some relief areas are actually outside of the security parameter. So you'll want to make sure that your dog has been properly relieved. If especially if the relief area is outside of the security parameter. So make sure you do that. And finally, the third thing that jumped out at me, Mike, and everyone, is, of course I was going to say it, but then I totally forgot now. But in keeping with that technology, oh yeah, you took it. You spoke about that, Mike, Ira, and there are other services like Be My Eyes, that is also a free app that people can use to get sighted assistance, should you choose to use it at the airport like that. So those are just a few tips that I think are pretty handy when traveling. It's pretty hectic. I think the most important thing, as you mentioned, is to be patient. And I'm speaking for myself here. I'm not a very patient person, and sometimes I get angry. But the easiest or the most convenient thing to do for anyone is just to arm yourself with patience, and really just, think about why you're traveling. You're traveling to see your family, your relatives. You're going to have a good time, and try to keep that in mind. So I just wanted to summarize that. And before I stop running my mouth, I also wanted to remind you guys that we are, like I said earlier, we are holding these meetings on the third Thursday of every month. We now have an email address as well. If you guys have any questions or topics that you'd like to cover throughout the next time, you can now email athotcorner@gmail.com. That's athotcorner@gmail.com. And if there's a lot of engagement, I think I see us possibly doing a Twitter handle here pretty soon too, and other social media. We'd like to stay engaged with each and every one of you throughout the time that we don't talk to you during these calls. and we'll be posting a lot of short recordings on YouTube as well. So that's athotcorner@gmail.com. And on YouTube, you can look us up at Assistive Technology Hot Corner. So that's all I've got to say, Mike. And I'll turn it over back to you.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Israel. And then we'll recap that information near the end of our presentation tonight as well. We'll stop here, and before we turn it over to Kim for her bit of the program this evening, she's going to talk about cooking and make us all hungry before we're done tonight, which is be perfect, and then we can all eat dinner. Want to open it up for any questions anybody has. And by what I'm going to do is ask for you to raise your hand. You can do that on your PC by pressing, I believe it is Alt-Y, if I'm not mistaken, for the hand raising gesture. On your smartphone, if you go to the More option on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you should see an option there that says Raise Hand. And if you'll do that, we will take a look and see if anybody has any questions. Israel, that's correct, right? Alt-Y?
That's correct.
And I'm going to look.
Raises and Alt-Y also lowers your hand.
Yes, it does. So if anybody has a question, certainly let us know. And I see one person does have their hand raised. So I'm going to.
I think I see Amber with her hand raised.
She does, and I'm about to ask her to unmute that. And Amber, I think we can hear you. So go ahead.
I actually already unmuted myself. So then when you did that, you actually muted me.
Sorry about
that. So I actually wanted to mention one thing that I've actually found super helpful, actually a couple of things. So you mentioned in your presentation, the fact that you're going to want to make sure your smartphone is fully charged. One of the things that I've found super, super helpful is if you go on Amazon or wherever, you can actually just buy like little battery packs for your phone. I literally just bought one and it cost me $20, and it can literally charge your phone 6 times if you buy the right one. The other thing that I would recommend too is sometimes, especially at the bigger airports, I know I've seen it at like O'Hare and LaGuardia and Atlanta, if you look around your chair in the airport, you may actually see like USB ports attached to your chair. And so you literally can just plug in your USB cable into your chair and it will charge your phone. It is super slow, but it will do it. And every once in a while I've found, a gate agent who, will show me to an outlet if you really, really need it. But those two are super helpful.
I will also caution you, and Amber, I'm glad you brought up the charging bit. I will also caution people, if you are in the airport and you want to get online, please be careful with using the airport's Wi-Fi, because it is not secure most of the time. And so any personal stuff, you're taking a chance in putting your personal information out there. So take that into consideration when you are using airport Wi-Fi, especially because that's a good place to get hacked. And, so it's not so much a big deal if you're watching or listening to audio or something like that, streaming something, that's not so much a big deal. But if you're, looking at personal information or something like that, just be aware.
Screen curtain, you guys. Sorry,
Yeah.
Mike, but yeah, screen curtain.
Screen curtain.
For those
really
of you
important.
that are voiceover users, screen curtain is very valuable.
Yes,
so
it
screen
is.
Curtain, you triple tap with 3 fingers on your phone, and it darkens your screen.
Yep.
And people can't look over your shoulder, especially if you're going to be looking at personal information. By the way, I see Bree on here. Welcome, Bree.
Yeah, nice to have you. Okay, so thanks, Amber. You got any other comments, Amber, before we move on? You good? I think she's good. All right. Thanks for that. I'm going to let's see. Gonna check real quick, make sure we don't have any other questions. I see Angela Mace is on. Thank you, Angela. Glad to see you. Just checking to see if anybody has a hand raised. I don't see anybody.
It doesn't look like anybody else has their hand raised.
Okay, cool. So we're going to move on. I'm going to bring on our next person to speak for a few minutes. And this person I think the world of. One of the most talented people I've ever been around. Kim Flanagan, who runs Tracy's Little Red Schoolhouse for us here at IFB, is a mother of, I think, 2 or 3 children. I can't remember. I think it's 2, but she has done most of her child raising and all of those things being low vision and now blind. And that's a tough job for any mother, no matter what your sight level is, but she's done a phenomenal job, and she has a lot of experience in running a house as a mom. And so she has some great ideas for cooking and some things to keep you safe, and also just some ideas of using technology to help you be more efficient in the kitchen. And I asked her to talk about that, since some of us may be cooking over the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays. So Kim, I'm going to let you take over and tell us what you have to share with us this evening. And I want to thank you for being a part of it. I have tried to unmute you. I've asked you to unmute, so hopefully you're able to do that. So welcome, and thanks for coming on and joining us.
Thank you, Mike, for those kind words. And yes, it is 2 children, but I love to cook. That is one of my hobbies. Unfortunately, I eat what I cook, so not the size 4 that I have in my mind's eye. But anyway, I think I'll start with getting appliances ready to use. If you're totally blind, most companies nowadays make Braille that you can order. Let's say that you've purchased a new microwave. You can request a clear, sticky overlay that will go over the microwave button panel, and it will have in Braille either the numbers or abbreviated letters for things like popcorn. They would have PC, and leftovers might be LO, that type of thing. And they're clear, so if you're sharing your microwave in your home with others, they can still see what the words or the numbers are on the buttons, but the sticky overlay will help you find it. If you don't want to go that route, or you have an older model, bump dots or Velcro, tiny pieces of Velcro also work to help identify buttons. And I always say less is more. Instead of brailing all of the numbers or putting a bump dot on every number, make some sort of pattern that makes sense to you. Definitely put a dot on the 5, and then you can usually find the other numbers, knowing that 1, 2, 3 would be above the 5, 4 and 6 to the left and right, and so on. Finding those other numbers using 5 as your guide with a bump dot on 5. Start, stop, or clear. Those are also buttons that you would probably want to mark. But whatever system you use, it has to make sense to you. So just because I say put a bump dot on stop doesn't mean that that will make sense to you. So have whatever system works for you, and do the same thing with your stove. If you need bump dots or Braille labels to make your stove accessible for you, then do that before you start trying to use it on a regular basis. My particular stove has twist knobs for the stove eyes, but a flat panel for the oven controls. So I have bump dotted my oven controls so that I can be independent with using that. I have a talking timer, which is probably one of the lowest tech assistive technology that's available. And I still use it because I can carry it in my pocket and I can go do the laundry or whatever else. And I always know how much time is left on whatever I'm cooking or baking. But there are so many apps on your phone, or we all have the circular A box in most rooms of our homes. All of those have availability of timers. Some ovens and microwaves have timers that you can access, whatever makes you the most comfortable. And the one that you practice with is the one that you will become the most efficient with. Getting into a little bit more technical things, if you're making a turkey for Thanksgiving, some brands have we'll call it a thermometer. It's an indicator that when the turkey is done, when the internal temperature reaches its desired degrees, there will be a little plastic indicator that will pop out. So if that plastic piece is fully extended and is no longer flush with the edge of the plastic device, then you know the internal temperature of your turkey has reached that desired amount. I don't usually make a full turkey, so I would use something more like a turkey breast. And if I want to be really fancy, I would use a meat thermometer that will insert into the center of the turkey. And there are digital readouts for those that are low vision, and there are talking meat thermometers that will let you know to what degree your meat is internally. And of course, it would work for more things besides turkey, but that's just the subject of the day with Thanksgiving coming up. If you have a flat top stove where the stove eyes are not distinguishable by touch, makes it a little bit more challenging, but I would recommend cutting a piece of cardboard, and you might have to have sighted help to get the dimensions correct at first. But if you cut a piece of cardboard, the shape of the corner, so you would have a bit of a wedge of a cardboard from the left counter to the edge of the eye, and from the front of the stove to the edge of the eye in a print L shape. Every time you lay that cardboard on the stovetop, you can center your pot in that corner that you've created, and you'll know that it is centered on the eye. And of course, for safety, do this before you turn the eye on. And some people turn the eye on and use the heat from it with a hand hovering over the eye to put your pot on. I prefer to use as much as I can without the heat and then turn it on after I've centered the pot. I do have the kind of stove where the coils stand up from the top of the stove, so I can feel where the coils are and know where the eyes are and know when my pot is centered. If you are using a frying pan on an eye, or you're making something in a pot and your pot or pan shifts, you can use a wooden spoon similar to the way you would use a cane, and you can touch the edge of your stove eye with that wooden spoon. And of course, don't leave it there for long periods of time. But if you use it to push against that stove eye, like you would a cane, it can find that obstacle, and you can tell where your pan is in relation to your stove eye. And that way you can make sure it's centered and taking advantage of as much heating surface as you can. If you're not comfortable using the stovetop because of things that might have fallen into the drip pan, or if you have a solid top stove and you're not comfortable knowing where to put your pot or pan, there is a whole host of appliances now available that can just plug into the wall and sit on your countertop. There are electric frying pans, and they have small or large surface areas depending on which model you buy. Some still have the twist control, and you could bump dot where high, medium, and low are on that control. If it has a digital panel, you can bump dot that as well, or use Braille stickers to know how to control that. The big rage right now are air fryers, and they are very user-friendly. At least the model that I have is. There are 2 twist knobs on the model that I have One is for the temperature and one is for the cooking time. And both of those can be bump dotted to the most popular ones. A lot of cartons, I'll call them, food packages will have air fryer directions in addition to either microwave or oven directions. So that's becoming more popular to tell you how long and at what temperature to make your food. There are George Foreman style grills that will cook the top and bottom of whatever you're cooking at the same time. So if you put a hamburger patty or a piece of fish or a piece of chicken in and close it, it opens like a clamshell and it has ridged surfaces to hold the meat in place. And as you close the lid, the top is also ridged inside. So it cooks the top and bottom at the same time. And it has little channels for the grease to drain off and get caught in a drip pan. And it takes less time than using a traditional frying pan. Like I said, several times it cooks both sides at the same time. So you don't have to worry about finding the piece of meat in the frying pan and using a spatula to try to turn it over. It will also do other things besides meat. It will do grilled cheese sandwiches. Well, bacon is meat, but it will do bacon. So there are lots of uses for that if you're not as comfortable with stovetop cooking. A lot of recipes can be made in the microwave now, particularly if you have some type of technology like Seeing AI or other apps, KNFB Reader, that will read your package directions for you. And sometimes barcode readers, which can be an app on your phone or a standalone apparatus, a standalone device. Barcode readers will often include information about cooking times, cooking directions, giving you choices of whether you make it in the oven or microwave or air fryer. There is just a host of things that are now accessible to the blind and low vision. There are many apps on your phone. One would be Paprika, and this app gives you a place to store recipes that will also link to a grocery list and will link to your pantry. So after you grocery shop, you can come home and enter the items into your pantry. It will keep up with expiration dates. And as you use your items, you can remove them from the pantry and either delete them altogether or add them to your grocery list. So it will keep a running tally of what you have on hand and when your expiration dates are. And then your grocery list can be saved. So the next time you want to shop, you have the items that you've already used or that you need to purchase in your app. The recipes will also help create your grocery list. If you're going to make chicken bacon ranch, it will add the items that you need based on the recipe that you have stored. Online, you can find recipes. I like allrecipes.com. You can also put in particular ingredients that you have in your cupboard, and it will help you think of what to make with those ingredients. And like I said, there are apps on your phone that will read barcodes, that will read text for recipes or for cooking directions. So we are living in a time when it is wonderful to be in the kitchen and use this technology, embrace it as you need to. And circular A boxes are great to ask questions. For example, if you need to know how many teaspoons are in a tablespoon, or how many ounces is in a half a cup. It will answer those questions for you in a very timely fashion. Very low tech is also measuring cups and spoons that either have large print or braille. And if you are low vision, you can get cups and spoons in light and dark colors for better contrast. So if you have black measuring cups, you might be able to see the sugar and flour better than if you're trying to measure in a white cup. There are also bent measuring spoons if you're trying to measure liquid and it's difficult for you to pour from a bottle into a small amount, let's say a half a teaspoon of vanilla. You can pour the vanilla into a measuring cup and dip the bent measuring spoon in like a ladle and lift it straight up, and you have a full half teaspoon that you can dump into your measuring bowl, your mixing bowl. And then you can take your measuring cup that usually has a pour spout on it and pour the excess back into your bottle for storage. These are some of my favorite things to use. For safety, you want to make sure that if you're going to use an appliance, or especially your stovetop, clear it of anything that doesn't belong, paper, dish towel, anything that shouldn't be there, clear it off before you turn the temperature on, before you have any heat. If you can load a pot or pan while the pot or pan is cool, it is a safety feature. Turning your pot handles in over the stove or over a countertop instead of having them sticking out from the stove will help keep you from knocking them in the floor and getting burned. Using oven gloves or oven mitts to get something out of the oven or the microwave also protect you from burns. When you're going to put something in or take something out of the oven, make sure that the door is all the way down. That way it won't accidentally spring back and close on your arm. And watch out for clothing where the sleeves are very baggy. You don't want to accidentally drag your sleeve through hot grease or let that sleeve catch a pot handle so that you're in danger of being burned. When you are lowering something into boiling water or hot grease, you need to have tongs or something where you can grip it firmly and lay it in instead of dropping it from any height, because you certainly don't want splashback to burn you. And there are canisters called Fire Stop that you can get at your fire department, and they look like a little tuna can suspended from a small chain, and they come on a magnet, and you put them under your stove hood and between the eyes, typically one on each side, and it has a powder inside, a specialized powder. If a flame ever touches the bottom sensor of this can, it will basically explode or open on its own and drop the powder to put the fire or flame out so it doesn't spread. This is a lot safer for those with low vision or those that are blind, because we might not know where the flames are, or we might not know what's causing that flame to know what chemical to use. And certainly it would be difficult to aim a fire extinguisher without vision. Not that it can't be done, but it does present its own set of challenges. And this is just an automatic fire stop that you can purchase at fire departments. If you have a pot lid, you could certainly try to smother a fire with a pot lid, but just be careful that you're not getting burned in the process. Certainly do not pour water if you suspect it's a grease fire. Putting powder on it like flour or baking soda would be preferred over water, because water will only make it spread since oil and water do not mix. When you take something out of the oven, obviously it's going to be hot. Prepare a place for it before you take it out. There's nothing more frustrating than to have a hot pan in your hands, and then you are wondering, where in the world is this going? And it's getting hotter by the minute. So put out your hot pads or your cooling rack before you open the oven door and know where you're going with your pan so that you don't have to handle it any longer than you need to. That also prevents you from sitting it on something where it shouldn't be. You certainly wouldn't want to set a hot pan on your cat or onto the pie that you made earlier or something like that. And if your both hands are busy holding a roasting pan, you don't have a free hand to feel around to see where your pan is going. So preparing that spot ahead of time can save you a lot of headaches. These are some of my favorite tips and tricks and some safety tips. And I'll be happy to answer any questions. And I would love to hear feedback from other tips and tricks that you guys have.
Thank you, Kim. I believe I'm also going to open it up now. My wife is also here, and I think she's got something to say. This is Leah.
Hi, I do a lot of cooking and cooking from scratch and such. So a few things I would like to add, and that was a lot of great information. I didn't know about the cans that you can put above your stove, so I'll be looking for those. Whenever you do the oven mitts, they have silicone covered oven mitts that are like plasticky silicone. Those are fantastic for when you're dealing with stuff that could potentially splash liquids onto your oven mitts and pot holders. If your pot holders or oven mitts get wet, it conducts heat very well. So having the silicone covered oven mitts is great for that. God forbid you reach into the oven, pull something out and liquid splashes out. Another thing I've always suggested to people who aren't always baking or using the oven as often is to open the door all the way. And before you reach in to pull anything out, orientate where you are now standing to where you need to put whatever you're going to pull out. Locate that area, because people don't always realize that when you open the door, you shift your body a little bit and you might be a couple of inches off from where you initially thought you were. So that's something good to know. The other thing I want to add is cooking thermometers. You can get some great cooking thermometers that talk off of Amazon. That's also large print for very cheap. We got one and it's lasted me for a very long time. The other thing is that if you are tech savvy, you can get Bluetooth cooking thermometers that can go and stay in the oven. So you can keep track of the temperature of whatever you're cooking as it's cooking, and then keep an eye on it on an app on your phone.
All right. Thank you, Leah. We learned a lot about cooking. Now, I won't be doing any of that.
I actually wanted to second.
I am quality control. That is my job during Thanksgiving.
Yes, exactly. So
one more thing
before we go too far, I want to anyone who has questions or anything, please raise your hand.
Let me look.
We'll do that. But Leah wanted to add one thing. First of all, I want to say, Kim, thank you so much for sharing all the stuff you shared. There's a lot of great information. I think though one of the take homes of what she said, before we let Leah say her one other thing here, common sense and just prior planning will help a lot when it comes to cooking, when it comes to traveling. I think that is the theme of the night. One of the things, just think it through. make sure you have a place for your hot pan to go and get it there as quickly as you can and get it out of your hands. I think that was something that I heard, and I learned the hard way about that about a year ago. So, and the air fryers are really great. I've been using one and here lately and learning a little bit about it, and they're really helpful. So, Leah, one thing, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Yeah, so I know a lot of people use delivery options such as like Instacart, but if you do plan to go to the store, a lot of stores have apps now that not only tell you how much stuff is, but what aisle it's located on. I use our local grocery store app, and I can make a shopping list on there and then use that list while I'm at the store. And if the employee doesn't know what aisle, I can tell them what aisle, I can show them the picture. And it also helps me budget by being able to see the cost of everything. And you can do that on the website as well if you're better with using your computer, and just get it together. But I just wanted to throw that out, that Instacart isn't the only website or app that has that available. Every local grocery store does too.
Very true. We do have at least a couple of folks who have questions. I'm going to ask them to start. If you have one and you have just joined us, you don't know how to or don't remember, if you're using a PC, it's Alt-Y. If you're on a smartphone, you go to the More Options button. I do have Kim unmuted and I have Leah unmuted. So if you've got a question for either one, that's fine. But want to get some questions in. And I see that Angela Mays has a question, and as soon as I can get to you and unmute you, I believe you're unmuted now, or at least you should be.
Yes, can you hear
There
me?
you are. Yes, we can.
Oh.
Go ahead, Angela.
Okay, what was the name of the, first of all, you gave some very, very, very amazing safety tips as well. I use many of them, but you even added some today. That was just really wonderful. And some of them were just reminders, because sometimes you just cook all the time and you just don't think of things. You just do it. But what was the name of the app that you said that you can put the recipes as well as the pantry and the shopping list?
Okay.
Paprika.
Yeah.
Okay, Paprika. And was there one more you were speaking of also?
We did mention Seeing AI,
Okay.
KNFB Reader to actually
That
read
one.
recipes.
Okay.
And there was a website, Kim, I think you mentioned.
Yeah, it seemed like it was
Which one
one
was
more
it?
thing.
All recipes.
Okay. Yeah.
Allrecipes.com.
Okay. Very good.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Well, thank you, Angela. Glad to have you with us. I'm glad you're here.
Thank
you very much.
Wonderful stuff. Wonderful.
Okay, very good.
Geneva's got her hand raised.
Okay, go ahead, Geneva. Well, hold on. I don't think you are. You can
I'm
try to
here.
unmute yourself. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right. First, I do want to say thanks to you as well. You did give some very good traveling tips. And I
Thank
do
you.
want to say, for us, that wheelchair thing, I always seem to get those because a lot of times the people, they don't know how to guide us. And some of them, they tiptoe, and I'm like, okay, I'm blind. You don't have to take baby steps, but just to minimize time, I just jump in the chair and go. Also, was it Kim?
That's right.
Very good tips. I love cooking and I always love different gadgets and tips on cooking. So you did a very good presentation. I want to say thanks to that. And also, I'm wondering, what is the name of the can you were speaking of that you could get purchased from the fire department? What was that name again?
Some are called Fire Stop, and some are
Stop.
called Drop and Stop. But it's the
Okay.
same idea.
Okay, awesome. I might have to look for that. I have gas and I love cooking with my gas. So I may just get some anyway, just to have around.
Not a bad
And
idea.
Now my hat is off to you. I would be terrified to cook with gas.
I will say that the way that they're making the things now, they are much, much safer than what they were when I was a child. So if you ever ended up having to get one, it's much better, I would say. And then also, I will have to say, I learned the hard way about frying. One day, well, actually, I wasn't frying, and I had a sibling that forgot it was that they were cooking, and I went in there and stuck a fork in a piece of steak to flip it over, and I didn't flip it over the correct, well, I will say the proper way that we should do it, because I stuck a fork in it and it splattered all over my face, and I had blisters, and it was awful. So just a great tip that I did have to learn was to, when you flip things over, make sure you're picking it up where the food is facing towards you, the fork. That way the grease will go splatter to the back of the stove instead of towards you. Is another
Amber's got her
tip
hand
that I had to
raised
learn.
too, Mike.
Yeah,
Just so you're
go
aware.
ahead. Yeah, okay. Well, Geneva, again, glad you were able to learn a lot. And I'm going to tell you this is before I call on Amber. I've actually had some of Kim's cooking. She knows what she's doing, buddy. She's ain't no doubt about that.
Cool.
But they do a really good job at the schoolhouse teaching kids the art of cooking. So
Great.
thank you for your comments. And Amber, I'm going to get you to unmute yourself and you can ask your question. And if anyone has a question, it's Alt-Y on PC, more on your phone, and then raise hand is the option there. And if you want to lower your hand, you can press Alt-Y to do that as well. Go ahead, Amber.
I just wanted to tell Geneva, I want to steal your stove because I have electric and I love cooking with gas. So if your stove disappears overnight, Mike Mote took it.
Oh yeah, blame me.
Yeah, but I actually wanted to second the silicone baking mitts. They're not only fantastic for like if you're picking up, something that might splash, but it also kind of gives you a little bit more grip when you're picking stuff up. So sometimes that's super helpful as well.
They're great for opening jars.
Yes, absolutely.
I have small hands and sometimes I have problems opening jars, so I just grab one and pop it right open, no problem.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than having to like go to a neighbor and being like, can you open this jar of pickles? They laugh at me, but it's fine.
Well, guys, I appreciate everyone's participation. Kim, again, thank you for presenting some of the tips about preparing food. A lot of us will be doing that over the course of the Thanksgiving, and a lot of us do it for ourselves. Like I said earlier, I use an air fryer now and find that to be really helpful. And one thing I would say to those of you who are new to air fryers, let's say you don't know how long something should be cooked. Let's say you're doing chicken fingers or French fries or something like that. Put a few in, like 5 or 6 fries. I know that sounds crazy, but do it and cook them for maybe 7 to 8 minutes or however long you think they should go. Then take them out and test them. And that way you're not ruining a whole batch. If you're doing chicken tenders or something, you just put one in and cook it, see how long it takes. And then you kind of have an idea of how long, and you're not ruining 3 or 4 chicken fingers. You're only ruining one if it didn't turn out. Things like that. Just think about ways to do it. That's what I have done. I've also gotten into, thanks to some suggestions by a dear friend of mine who his wife came by about a week and a half ago. It was Roger's wife, as a matter of fact, showed me how to make tea in a coffee maker. And that's a beautiful thing. It's easy, safe, and you don't have to worry about it. So there's a lot of ways you can do stuff. So I'm glad that we were able to kind of get some of this stuff out. And before we end the meeting, Israel mentioned it earlier. We now have our own YouTube channel. Really proud of it. And I want to thank Israel for sort of managing the operation of it, at least early on. You can find us at youtube.com/assistive technology. Isn't that right, Israel? Is that the name of it? I believe that's how you
Well,
find
we're
it.
not quite cool enough, according to the YouTube algorithm, to have our custom URL.
Yeah.
So subscribe and share, people,
There you
because
go.
we need at least 100 subscribers and 4,000 total hours watched of our content for us to be able to qualify to get a custom URL. So right now, if you just go to YouTube, you can search Assistive Technology Hot Corner and you might come across us. Or search for either Mike Mote or my name, Israel Cazares, Cazares, and you might come across that as well on YouTube. And as I mentioned before, we do have the email address as athotcorner@gmail.com if you guys have any comments, suggestions. And personally, too, I want to take this opportunity, now that I have the soapbox, to thank Mike for all his work that he's done with this group over the first couple of years that he's been doing this. Thank Kim for her presentation tonight. It was very, very informative. Leah as well, and everybody else that's participated. So thank you, guys. And since I think this is going to be my last comments of the night, I want to wish every single one of you a very happy and safe Thanksgiving. If you're traveling, travel safely. Enjoy your families. It's been a rough couple of years, but we're here at another Thanksgiving, and there's a lot to be thankful for. So enjoy the time that we have with your families, and again, thanks for participating, and I invite you guys to just continue spreading the word of this group. We want to do a lot of cool things, and there'll be a lot of cool presentations coming up, and we want to hear from you. So again, athotcorner@gmail.com. Don't forget.
For more great content, please like, subscribe, and share. You may also email the show at athotcorner@gmail.com. That's athotcorner@gmail.com.